really breaks my heart. Cause we've been lied to, misled for years, calling out to the Most High on this trail of tears. AHRAYAH, 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 AHRAYAH,
So the lesson I'll sit down by the elders, I actually did it like a month ago. Because I'm looking through the notes, I'm telling my wife, like, this sounds just too familiar. Because we did it in August, on August 10th. So reach back into the archives, and the perfect for today, because the Spirit has led me in different directions on how to bring today out, is the path He's chosen. And you might remember about a couple months ago when I made a statement like, yeah, I wanted to do this class, but Officer Yatazako's Bible study was too close to it. So I did another class. So now we bring it today. Excuse me. So the path least chosen, right? And just from that title, you can probably kind of tell where we're going with this. So Officer Lamont, can you start us off with reading the commentary?
The commentary reads, "The truth isn't for everyone, and the road may seem hard at times."
Right, and the road may seem hard at times.
"There are many who come across the truth, but few stay the course."
Right, and there are many who come across. Why? Because the scriptures say, many are called. So many will come across the truth, but few stay the course. The officer, he went over that a little bit last Friday, last Sabbath, during his class. Go ahead.
"We must not take for granted that we were graced with the information which truly may bring us eternal life."
Right, because in this world, this so-called Hebrew world that we find ourselves in, kind of plunged into, right? We put the carnal aspect of the knowledge above the spiritual aspect of the knowledge. And we take it for granted that we even was given this knowledge. Why? Because we might work hard, staying up late, reading the scriptures, reading other books, reading history books, looking up documentaries, searching out other camps so we could better argue them, researching the Christian apologetics to see what they're talking about, you know what I'm saying? And we'll kind of forget that this information was actually a gift from the Most High. Wisdom is a gift. Wisdom is a gift. The gospel is a gift. This truth is a gift. And it was by the Most High's mercy that He gave us this gift. So we can't ever take that for granted and get too caught up in this narrow fleshly divide, if you will. Go ahead.
As temptation grows, our desire to walk right must grow even more so.
Right. And this lesson kind of, had like 3 little branches that came out that's going to inspire 3 more lessons. But number 1 is because, all right, there we go, the official time, right? And I think whatchamacallit is coming up next week, right? Daylight saving is next week, right? Yeah, so we gotta make sure, we're gonna have to make sure that we change the clock, and most likely really soon we're gonna probably change the Sabbath time back to 2 o'clock.
Right.
So just a heads up on that. So read that again, that part again.
As temptation grows, our desire to walk right must grow even more so.
Right. So this a topic has come up to me and the officers a couple times now. And the topic is, how do we actually apply the scriptures in just everyday life, everyday walking life? Which is a good question. But part of the mystery behind it is in this statement right here. That as temptation grows, our desire to walk right must grow even more so. So first of all, you gotta desire something. Because desire influences decisions, and decisions influence behavior. Just like how you desire a new car, your whole life paradigm is switched to getting that new car. Not saying that's a good or bad thing, right? Or if you desire a new job, your whole life is around that desire and taking action on the desire. And there's be a lot of practical things in life that we might desire to change. And we got to have that desire and make that conscious choice, that conscious decision to want to walk right. Go ahead, Art.
We must choose the path least chosen.
And that's the decision right there. We got to choose the path that's least chosen. Go ahead.
As mercy will be cut short for this world, which shall pass away.
Right. So let's get the first set of scriptures. We're going into Matthew chapter 7, starting at verse 13. That's Matthew chapter 7, starting at verse 13. And the path least chosen.
Okay, this is Matthew 7 and 13. Enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction. And many there be which go in and thereat. I'm gonna read that again. Yeah, you can put it there. There we go. Enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction. And many there which go in thereat. Because this is verse 14. Because straight is the gate and narrow is the way that leadeth unto life. And through there be that findeth.
Right. So it says, enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction. And many there be which go in thereat. Because straight is the gate, and narrow is the way, which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. So what is the straight gate? Righteousness. What does a straight gate look like? Narrow. Let's get 2 Ezra chapter 7, so we get some more understanding about this straight gate, which is righteousness, and how it's narrow. So we have 2 Ezra in the Apocrypha, chapter 7, starting at verse 1. And Brother Ephraim, we got seats in the front, huh? Yep.
When you there, say con. Okay, this is 2 Ezra chapter 7, verse 1. And when I had made an end of speaking these words, there was sent unto me the angel which had been sent unto me the night before.
Now this is Ezra in the Bible that we read, the 66 books, and it's Ezra in the Apocrypha. And this angel Uriel is the one who's being sent down to speak to him during this whole second book. Go ahead, Art.
And he said unto me, Up, Edges, and hear the words that I am come to tell thee. Verse 3. And I said, Speak on, my God. Then said he unto me, The sea is set in a wide place, that it might be deep and great. Verse 4. But put the case, the entrance were narrow and like a river.
Right, so the sea or the ocean might be vast with a lot of space, but the entrance is narrow. Why we see that even when we learn in social studies and geography, you always got the little the channels and the rivers that go into the large seas and large oceans. Go ahead.
Verse 5.
Just like I think the beginning of the Mississippi River is somewhere in Illinois, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like you can actually step over it. Right, but it's still the Mississippi River, you know, and then the Mississippi River goes all the way into the Gulf, right? Mm-hmm. So go ahead,
Verse 5. Who then could go into the sea to look upon it and to rule it? If he went not through the narrow, how could he come into the bride?
Right, so if you want to go out into the sea, you're going to have to go through the narrow first. Go ahead. So, but the bride is going to, because we might get the bride mixed up with bride is the way that leads to destruction. In this case, the bride is an example talking about the kingdom of heaven. Go ahead.
Verse 6. There is also another thing. A city is built.
Right, here we go with the metaphor. A city. Talking about that kingdom of heaven, that new city, that New Jerusalem. Go ahead.
There is also another thing. A city is built and set up on a broad field, and is full of all good things. Verse 7. The entrance thereof is narrow.
Right, so the entrance to this city is narrow. Go ahead.
And is set in a dangerous place to fall.
Right, and I think we've all seen the movies or pictures, whatever, how it's some narrow little passage, like it's like a bridge, and they got the moat, like the water down at the bottom. Or some people might be a little bit more wicked with their kingdom, and it's other stuff down at the bottom, right? Spikes or whatever the case may be. But it's always a dangerous way that you got to pass to get to the doors of the kingdom. Go ahead.
Like as if there were a fire on the right hand and on the left a deep water.
So the entrance to the kingdom is so narrow. Well, it's going to get to how narrow it is, but it's so much temptation, so many different things that might, what you call, distract you or cause harm to you on both sides, fire and water. Go ahead.
Verse 8, and one only path between them both.
So it's only one path, only one narrow path to enter into this kingdom. Not many paths, only one narrow. Go ahead.
Even between the fire and the water, so small that there could be one man go there at once.
So it's so narrow that only one man could go at a time. So we're single file going down this narrow path. Just like, you might see some other movies where it's it'll be those random drawbridges, not a drawbridge, but the rope bridges that might connect one part of the mountain to another, and you got to hold on, but only one person can go at a time.
Right.
That's exactly how it is. Go ahead.
Verse 9. If this city now were given unto a man for an inheritance, if he never shall pass the danger set before it, how shall he receive the inheritance?
Right, so if the city was an inheritance for a man, aka us, because the eternal life, the kingdom, is our inheritance if we follow the path, but how can we get there if we don't cross this narrow path, this narrow, dangerous path? Go ahead.
Verse 10, and I said, it is so, Lord. Then said he unto me, even so also is Israel's portion.
Right there. That's Israel's portion, this kingdom. So he's related how Israel's portion is only one narrow path, and it's a dangerous path. And only one, it's so narrow that only one can go at a time. Go ahead.
Verse 11, because for their sakes I made the world. And when Adam transgressed my statutes, then was decreed, now is done.
Right, so it says, then was decreed that now is done. So what it's saying is, when Adam transgressed, that's when this narrow path was decreed. As one explain why. Go ahead.
Verse 12, then were the interests of this world made narrow, full of sorrow and travail. They are but few and evil, full of perils, and very painful. Verse 13, for the interests of the elder world were wide and sure, and brought immortal fruit.
Right, because why? They was in the garden. And man, his only commandment was to be a husbandman of the garden. And he was in the presence of the Most High. So he was already there. The entranceway was broad. It was no need for this dangerous, narrow path. Go ahead.
Verse 14, If then they that live labor not to enter these straight and vain things, then can never receive those that are laid up for them.
Now check that out. It says, if then they that live labor not to enter these straight and vain things, they can never receive those that are laid up for them. So meaning, us that's living today in these times that Ezra is seeing, if we labor not to enter this narrow path, then hey, we have no chance. And this is when you go to the commentary when it says, there are many who come across the truth, but few stay the course. This is why. Because only in this true gospel, you realize, okay, I gotta be a man. Or okay, I gotta be a woman. I gotta be accountable now. Because everything else you can play around. You can play around with everything else. And we know that in our spirit. And that's why sometimes it's just too much, it's overwhelming, we tap out. Obviously not us in this room, but we know a few people, right? But that's what happens. That's what happens. So let's go ahead, we're gonna hold Matthew, make sure you hold Matthew, because we're gonna go a few places, but still hold on to Matthew. So we're at Matthew, we are verse 15 now. Because we gotta remember, that some of the dangers along this path are ravening wolves dressed in sheep's clothing. Go ahead,
Okay, this is Matthew chapter 7, verse 15. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are raving wolves. Verse 16. Ye shall know them by their fruits.
All right, let's stop there. So who are these false prophets? Because the man whose the man who Christ built his church upon, he warned us about who these false prophets were, what they'll do. Let's get 2 Peter chapter 2. And believe it or not, remember Christ established his church upon Peter. Peter, 1st and 2nd Peter is very dense, meaning it's a lot of instruction within these two books. It's a lot of instruction. It's very dense with wisdom and instruction. So, when you get the chance, really, don't race through these scriptures. Sit with them, dwell with them, meditate on them. We had chapter 2, verse 1.
This is 2 Peter's chapter 2, verse 1. But there were false prophets also among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privately shall bring in damnable heresies, even denying the Lord that bought them, and bring up themselves swift destruction. Verse 2. And many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of.
Right, so it says, not only will be false prophets, but guess what? Many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. And if you notice, that's how every other person starts their doctrine. The evil speakings of someone else. Because without that, sensational news, you're really not building anything. So all you're doing is catching those weak souls and reaping them to yourself. Because you know how to stir up the emotions. You know how to stir up that curiosity that had man fall from the beginning. You weren't building anything. All you did was do some things, right, to snatch people's attention. That's why a lot of times you see people who leave and end up coming back. They got shaken from the spell. They were shaken from the spell, like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm back now, let's go. And it's like they never left because, hey, they was always with us. So let's go.
Right.
And that's how it be. Especially with men, we could not see each other for 10 years. Hey, hey, how's it going? Sorry. All right, let's go. Nothing else needed. All right. You sorry? Cool. I forgave you 10 years ago.
Right.
You the one who made this thing last 10 years. Let's go. And that's how it be. And that's how it has to be. Right? Let's go.
This is verse 3. And through covetousness shall they with feigned words make merchandise of you.
Right, because that's what it is really. With feigned words, meaning fake, phony, false words, they make merchandise of you. Because guess what? You're number one of those 50,000 views they got in that video. Who's supported by the ad system on YouTube. Right? You make number one of the supporters handing the money. Right? You make number one of them, of the people who's giving the word of mouth so that damnable heresy could get spread. Right? Go ahead.
Whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not. Verse 4. For if God spared not the angels that sinned.
That's it on that. But it's about to go into how if God didn't even spare the angels, of course he's not going to spare these people. And it's going into how Noah and Lot were saved during these horrendous times. So trust and believe the Most High knows how to save you from these damnable heresies that might come from the ravening wolves. All right, so let's get verse 16.
Okay, this is Matthew chapter 7, verse 16. We shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. This is verse 18. A good tree cannot bring forth fruit, neither a good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Verse 19. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Verse 20. Wherefore, by their fruits ye shall know them.
Right, so it's wherefore, by their fruits ye shall know them. Now it's not a new word, but it's new among the internet world. It starts with a C, a CH sound. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Charlatan. Charlatan. A quack. A quagmire, right? A charlatan. A Pied Piper. Somebody who talks, who can't back up anything, who don't have a track record of anything. And these are the people that's running these Facebook pages, these YouTube channels out there in the streets, who got the nerve to come up to us and oppose the doctrine of Christ. The people who you might see at the bookstores, who know how to talk very well and know how to get crowds going. We've seen them. Where's Zion? We got attacked by that mess a couple times, right? They know how to start a crowd and start a conversation going. But the sad thing about it is they know how to sensationalize, and they study man. They know how to hit men and the emotions and get things stirred up, so we get caught up in that and end up supporting them. And never ask if they have proof or evidence of what they're talking about. Never ask if they have proof or evidence of what they're talking about producing some results in their own life. Right? So we got to start fact checking people. We got to stop just letting anybody just start talking in front of us. Because it's been leading us to destruction. It has been leading us to destruction. Read that again.
Every tree that bringeth not,
Verse 20. Yeah.
verse 20, wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them.
Right. So I had a family member, and this always stuck with me. Right? I had a family member say something to me, and they said, well, Darren, and this is what the older generation usually says. Yeah, he's smart. He sounds good. Talking about Elder Ricard. Right? But I had a family member say to me one time, 10 years ago, when I'm fresh into the truth, 24-year-old, and after showing them Camp FEMA, right? Probably wasn't the best idea. But anyway, they say, and then showing them some videos, and they say, all right, this is good and all, but what is he gonna do once when he starts getting a lot of followers and money starts coming in?
Interesting.
But guess what? We're at that stage now, and he has not changed. He hasn't. And he'll be the first one to say publicly, you know what I'm saying? That is not about me. We do not want you following man. Yeah, man was sent to teach and guide the church, but it's not about a man. They say that publicly all the time. And you know, the funny thing about it is a few of the people who have left this church were complaining, saying that the church was getting a little bit too Hollywood. You know what that is? That's a cold, calculated excuse.
Yep. Big time.
Because you got men of integrity that's leading this church. And how do we know that? Verse 20, read it again.
This is Matthew 7:20. Wherefore by their fruits you shall know them.
Right. And we done seen a few people who try to start some things on their own. And it came to naught. Quickly. Go ahead, next verse.
This is 7:21, Matthew 7:21. Not everyone that says unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Verse 22, many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils? And in thy name done many wonderful works? Verse 23, and then I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity.
Right. So we're gonna come back to that in a minute. But let's understand where good works come from, or good fruit comes from. Because the Bible tells us, Christ tells us, of course, the same man who tells us that you'll be known by your fruit, and all these things about a good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit. Of course, he's going to tell us what good fruit is and how you can obtain good fruit. Let's go to St. John chapter 15. Still holding Matthew. And when we think about it, well, we all can think about it now. But in the car Thursday. In the car Thursday, I was thinking about, like, man, you know, Christ is the ultimate example of manhood. And I don't know if we ever really examined it that way before. He is the ultimate example of a leader and of manhood. And of standing up for integrity and standing up for what you believe in and dying for it. And bringing evidence of what he's talking about. Right? So let's get verse 1. John chapter 15, verse 1.
Okay, this is John chapter 15 and verse 1. I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman.
Right. Why? Because Isaiah 5 and 7 lets us know that Israel is the Most High's vineyard. Go ahead.
Verse 2. Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away. And every branch that beareth fruit, he purges it, that it may bring forth more fruit. Verse 3. Now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. Verse 4. Abide in me, and in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine. No more can ye except ye abide in me.
Right, and that's what happens. People go off and try to bear fruit, but it's impossible. Why? Because a branch that's fallen off or a branch that's not connected to the vine is dead. No life is there. It's against all natural laws of the universe for it to bear fruit. Right? Because it's not connected to the vine. So we have to be connected to the vine if we expect to bear fruit. So we have to be always abiding in Christ, because that's the only fruit that's going to bear anyway. We had tons of guys. I don't want to say guys, because I'll be kind of belittling them. We had tons of men, righteous men, who, definitely we should learn about and respect. But, hey, they weren't part of the vine. And I don't even know if they was even thinking about the vine. Right? And I'm talking about men in history who tried to lead us and things like that, but they were not part of the vine. They had evidence, but it wasn't the right kind. Because according to Scripture, there's only one type of fruit, because there's only one way. Go ahead, Art.
Verse 5. I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me ye can do nothing. Verse 6. If a man abideth not in me, he is cast forth as a branch, and is withered, and men gather him, and cast them into the fire, and they are burned.
Right. And another reason why, and we're going to get to it in a couple of scriptures, but while this thought is fresh in my head, I don't want to lose it. One of the other main reasons why you can't really get anything done without abiding in the vine of Christ is because you got to look at the New Testament. I mean, the New Covenant and the Old Covenant. The Old Covenant, as Josephus said, Moses gave us a government. And if you look at the law, really examine it, and how it was coming out of Egypt to form a nation, that was our governing structure, that law. Because we had civil law, how to do with matters. We had the ceremonial law. We had the customs, the rituals, the feast days, the holy days, all that, right? And that was how that we used that to govern ourselves. So is it any different? Let me ask you. Is it any different now with the new covenant? Nope. Because what do we have now? Christ. Back then we had judges. We had captains. What do we have now? We got elders, apostles, bishops, deacons, officers. We have a governing structure. Yeah, we got sellouts. I heard you. we'll get to the sellouts. They got a whole portion in this class. Yeah, no, it's all good. But we got sellouts. No, but we got a governing structure within the new covenant. It's called the church. And we're going to get into that in a few scriptures. But let's go ahead.
This is verse 7.
So, yeah, right. That's what I was, the point, right. So that's how we get things done within the confines of our government structure, our governing structure. And if you try to step outside of that, guess what? It's going to come to naught. What happened to those people who tried to go outside of the confines of Moses? We got some horror stories. Plenty of them. But guess what? We got a new set of horror stories. And we're about to get into it. Go ahead, Doc.
This is verse 7. If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you. Verse 8. Herein is my Father glorified, that ye bear much fruit, so shall ye be my disciples. Right.
All right, so let's get back to Matthew. And it says, verse 21, I believe, 21, right. So it says, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. So the sad reality of it is that it's been a lot of great men, and probably will continue to be a lot of great men who are going to have some very wonderful, beautiful memorial service when they leave this earth. Yep. And there's been some great men who have some very good memorial services when they left this earth. But guess what? The people were fooled, but Christ was not. The people were fooled, but not Christ. So let's get the commentary.
The commentary reads, you will find there is no shortage of those who will choose the broad path. Many of those who claim to choose Christ in the day of judgment will reap the rewards of destruction, being they chose not to truly walk the straight path.
Right. Because remember, it's a very, very narrow path. So let's get the next set of scriptures, Acts chapter 19, verse 13. We're going to get some examples of some men who, sad to say, I never knew you, right? So let's get Acts chapter 19, verse 13.
When you dare say, Con? Okay, this is Acts chapter 19 and verse 13. Then certain of the vagabond Jews, exorcists, took upon them to call over them which had evil spirits the name of the Lord Yeshua, saying, we adjure you by Yeshua, whom Paul preaches.
Right. And notice the word exorcist was never a word that was given to identify the disciples. Because they relied on the power of Christ, the anointed one, the power and the authority that was given to them. They didn't need any type of label. Right? Go ahead.
Verse 14. And there were 7 sons, one Sceva, a Jew and chief of the priests, which did so.
So these men weren't just regular Jews. They were sons of a priest. Go ahead.
Verse 15. And the evil spirit answered and said, Yeshua I know, and Paul I know, but who are ye?
Right. So these men was trying to use the power of Christ, but they were never anointed with that authority. Go ahead.
And the man whom the evil spirit was leaped on them, and Salakia. And the man whom the evil spirit was leaped on them and overcame them and prevailed against them. So they that fled out of the house naked and wounded.
Right, so it says, and the man in whom the evil spirit was leaped on them. So they were coming to make merchandise of men, mind you, number one, to reap souls to themselves. And they thought they could play around with the same power that they saw the disciples operating in. But those evil spirits leaped on them. Go ahead.
This is verse 17. And this was known to all the Jews and Greeks, also dwelling in Ephesus, and fear fell on them all, and the name of the Lord Yeshua was magnified.
Right. So this is a clear-cut example of Christ saying, I never knew you. men trying to operate, saying, haven't we cast out devils in your name? Haven't we did great and wonderful works in your name? Nope, never happened. Let's get the commentary.
Commentary reads, evil men chose to call on the power and authority of Christ. However, their wicked acts disqualified them from such authority, and the demons did not fear them. We must make sure we are right for the times ahead, or we may suffer an even worse fate.
Right. So now, just to make a disclaimer, me, the officers, we're not excluded from this, what's about to be read. Right? So this isn't us spilling something at you. No, that's not what this is, right? Because we all need to hear this. So it says, for the times ahead, or we must make sure we are right for the times ahead, or we may suffer an even worse fate. Why? Because we're in a new covenant with a whole new different governing structure.
Right.
With a whole new different set of consequences. A whole new different set of responsibilities. So let's get the Apocalypse of Paul. And we're going to read about the when it says we might suffer a worse fate. So let's read about it. And if you want, it's the quickest way to get it, right? If you want to get it, and read along. Type into Google, Apocalypse of Paul full text. And if you type in the very first one that pops up, that's the one that I got, and that's the one I'm reading from. So type in Apocalypse of Paul full text, and the very first thing that pops up, it says Vision of Paul. Here begins the vision of St. Paul the Apostle, scripturaltruth.com.
I just had just a quick question while everyone had looked for it. Is this the time that Mosiah put scales on Paul's eyes and got the vision?
You know what? I don't know, so I'll have to look into that. Yep. And within this, what we're about to read, you about to understand why I just told this man, I don't know. Right? I'm laughing, but it's a certain responsibility you got to live up to.
I think I know where you're about to go to.
So, type in Apocalypse of Paul full text in Google, and it'll be the first link you can click on. It's a PDF, and then your phone gonna prompt the download. So you just pull that up, and it's a nice clean text. That's why I chose this one. And if you're reading with us, scroll down to page 27, and we're gonna be at the top of 27, and that's actually chapter 30. It looked like it's verses, like when you see the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's actually chapters. So we're gonna go down to chapter 31. And chapter 31 starts on page 26. But go down to the middle of chapter 31, which is on the top of page 27, where it says, and I saw there a fervent river of fire. So if anybody is with us trying to look for it, just let us know when you got it. Con? You can see that, and I saw there. All right, cool. All right, let's read. And we're going to read through this, so we're going to spend some time with this.
Okay, come on. And I saw there a fervent river of fire, and in it a multitude of men and women immersed up to the knees, and other men up to the navel, others even up to the lips, others moreover up to the hair. And I asked the angel and said, Sir, who are those in the fiery river? And the angel answered and said to me,
Now check this out. Let's see who these people are.
They are neither hot nor cold, because they were found neither in the number of the just nor in the number of the impious. For those spent the time of their life on earth passing some days in prayer.
Right. So they spent their time on earth sometimes in prayer, but other days what?
But others in sin and fornications.
So this is the hot nor cold. When you read Revelations, I got it here. Revelations chapter 2, verse 15. You can write that down. Verses 15 through 22. When Christ speaks about, I know thy works. You are neither hot nor cold. Therefore I spew you out. Chapter 2, verse 15. And you can read it through the rest of the chapter through 22. I'll just read fit verse 15 real quick.
Isn't that 3
Is it 3? Yes, chapter 3, thank you. So chapter 3, verse 15 through 22. So it says, verse 15, I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou were cold or hot. So then, because thou art lukewarm, and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. So these are they who spend some of their days in prayer and some of the days in sins and fornications. That's how when you hear the proverb, like a dog returns to his vomit. Go ahead, Al.
Okay. For those spend time of their life passing some days in prayer, but others in sins and fornications until their death. And I asked him and said, Who are these, sir, immersed up to the knees in fire? And he answered and said to me, These are they who, when they have gone out of church.
So they attend the church, but when they leave out the doors when church is over, what do?
Throw themselves into strange conversations to dispute.
Right. Go ahead.
Those indeed who are immersed up to the navel are those who, when they have taken the body and blood of Christ, go and fornicate, and did not cease from their sins until they die.
What does that mean? They're taking the body and blood of Christ. Communion. They taking the Christ communion. Go ahead.
Those who are immersed up to the lips are the detractors of each others when they assemble in the church of God.
Right. So those are who are immersed up to the lips. And it's interesting that they're immersed up to the fire up to their lips, because they are the detractors. And then you understand what detractor means. It makes sense why they're immersed up to their lips. What does detractor mean? They throw you off course. These are the folks. I got detractor up here. You can read that. Yeah, it's small.
This one?
Yep.
A person who disparages someone from something.
A person who disparages someone or something. And disparages means to regard little or little worth, right? So it's another good definition of detractor. Someone who criticizes something or someone, often unfairly. A person who criticizes. So who does that sound like? Satan, the accuser. And remember last week we went into it, how that same accusational spirit or accusing spirit can get inside of us. And it'll start off so innocent. But guess what? A detractor turns into a heretic real quick. Because it's a little leaven leavening the whole lump. Believe it or not, a detractor is a heretic. Believe it or not. Those who always find something to criticize or complain, judge. Well, why is it going this way? And they'll pull somebody to the side and say, you ever notice that, such and such is doing things this way now when it used to go that way? Detractor. And guess what Proverbs say? And this is when I remember I said this lesson spurred out to different things. This is one of them. Going into the spirit of the detractor. It says, a wicked one separated or disquieted chief friends. What does that mean? Disquieted chief friends. Separate them. They were quiet, now they're not, because they're arguing all the time. Go ahead,
Those who,
Those up to the eyebrows.
those up to the eyebrows are those who nod approval of themselves and plot spite against their neighbor.
And that's interesting too, up to the eyebrows, because usually you wink with your eyebrows, right? Proverbs talks about that. He winks and speaks with his feet. Verse 32, or chapter 32.
Chapter 32. And I saw on the north a place of various and diverse punishments, full of men and women, and a river of fire ran down into it. Moreover, I observed and I saw pits, great in depth, and in them several souls together, and the depth of that place was 3,000 cubits. And I saw them groaning and weeping and saying, have pity on us, O Lord. And none had pity on them. And I asked the angel and said, who are these, sir? And the angels answered and said unto me,
Right, check out who these people are. Go ahead.
these are they that did not hope in the Lord.
Now check that out. Losing your faith in the Lord, you get a punishment for that. Not simply because you lost faith, but the loss of faith and the loss of patience, how that changes your mind and behavior and what you end up driven to do. Sirach 2 and 6. Believe in him, and he will help thee. Order thy way aright, and trust in him. Ye that fear the Lord, wait for his mercy, and go not aside lest ye fall. Ye that fear the Lord, believe him, and your reward shall not fail. Ye that fear the Lord, hope for good, and for everlasting joy and mercy. Look at the generations of old and see, did ever any trust in the Lord and was confounded? Or did any abide in his fear and was forsaken? Or whom did he ever despise that called upon him? For the Lord is full of compassion and mercy, long-suffering and very pitiful, and forgiveth sins, and saveth in time of affliction. Key. Woe be to the fearful hearts and faint hands, and the sinner that goeth 2 ways. Woe unto him that is faint-hearted, for he believeth not, therefore shall he not be defended. Woe unto you that have lost patience, and what will you do when the Lord shall visit you? They that fear the Lord will not disobey his word, and they that love him will keep his ways. So read that part again. These are they.
These are they who did not hope in the Lord, that they will be able to have him as their helper.
Right, because what happens is you look for your own wisdom, your own flesh, your own conceit to be your helper. You trust in man's ways, man's wisdom. You trust in your flesh. The Most High ain't working fast enough. This stuff that they talking about on Saturdays, hey, I'm living a real life. I gotta eat. Or hey, I got some real stuff going on, and I don't see how that's helping me right now. But little do we know that it is actually helping us, because it's helping us reform our minds. Go ahead.
And I asked.
And I'm sorry, but something I was saying yesterday in a conversation, how we get kind of confused with time, because in a 30-minute episode, everything gets resolved. So that could be problematic. basing reality off a 30-minute episode, and really it's not even 30 minutes. It's usually 22 or 18 minutes because you got 10 to 12 minutes of commercials.
Right.
Right. Go ahead, Doc.
And I asked and said, Sir, if these souls remain for 30 or 40 generations, thus one upon another, if they were sent deeper, the pits, I believe, would not hold them.
So Paul is saying, eventually, after 40, 50 generations, wouldn't it run out of room? Go ahead.
And he said to me, the abyss has no measure.
The abyss has no measure. Go ahead.
For beyond this, it stretches down below him who was down in it. And so it is.
Right, so Paul is witnessing just people who's up to their knees in it. Or up to their eyebrows, right? So Paul, just quite naturally, might think that that's it. All right, this top of the head, that's it. But no, far it stretches down. Go ahead.
That if perchance anyone should take a stone and throw it into a very deep well, and after many hours it should reach the bottom, such as the abyss.
Right, so if we was going out there, me and Steve and me and both our families, we was out there throwing rocks, right, at the end of Tabernacles. Now picture of me and him was throwing these rocks, we was throwing rocks in the sea, right? Not the sea, Lake Michigan. So picture of those rocks took hours just to get down. That's what he's explaining right here. Go ahead.
For when the souls are thrown in there, they hardly reach the bottom in 50 years.
So when Paul is witnessing these people, their punishment was really just starting. And they will hardly reach the bottom of it in 50 years. Go ahead.
I indeed, when I heard this, wept and groaned over the human race. The angel answered and said unto me, Why dost thou weep? Art thou more pitiful than God? For through the Most High is good. He knows all that there is punishments.
Right, so the angel is telling Paul, like, hey, you're weeping right now, but you're not more pitiful than the Creator. He knows about these punishments. Go ahead.
And he patiently bears with the human race.
And he patiently bears with us because he knows these punishments. Go ahead.
Dismissing each one to work his own will in the time in which he dwells on the earth.
Right. Next chapter, 34.
Yes, sir.
And for those coming in, we're in the Apocalypse of Paul, chapter 34. And if you want to follow along, just type in Apocalypse of Paul full text, those exact words, Apocalypse of Paul full text in Google, and click the first link because that's the one we're all reading from right now. Go ahead,
I further observed the fiery river and saw there a man being tortured by Tartaruan angels.
Yep, Tartaruchian angels. So
okay.
When you look that up, remember this is translated out of Greek. So when you look at Greek, Tartarus, that's the Greek word for the abyss where tortures happen. So these Tartaruchian angels are the angels that's over the tortures down in, Sheol or Sheol or hell. Go ahead.
I further observed the fiery river and saw there a man being tortured by Tartaruchian angels, having in their hands an iron with three hooks, with which they pierced the bowels of that old man.
Right.
And I asked the angel and said, Sir, who is that old man on whom such torments are imposed? And the angel answered and said to me, He whom you see was a presbyter.
A presbyter. Go ahead.
Who did not perform well his ministry. When he had been eating and drinking and committing fornication, he offered the host to the Lord at his holy altar.
Right. So let's see what a presbyter is. Anybody know already?
The elder or minister of the Christian church.
Right. It's an elder or minister of the Christian church. So we talking about an elder now. So it says in the New Testament, A presbyter is a leader of a local Christian congregation. The word derives from the Greek presbyteros, which means elder or senior. The Greek word episkopos literally means overseer. It refers exclusively to the office of bishop. So elder/bishop. So let's get chapter 35.
This is chapter 35. And I saw not far away another old man being led by a malign angel running with speed. And they pushed him into the fire up to his knees. And they struck him with stones and wounded his face like a storm. And did not allow him to say, "Have pity on me."
And notice the other souls were screaming and yelling, "Have pity on me." Now this particular soul didn't even get that chance. Go ahead.
And I asked the angel, and he said unto me, "He whom you see was a bishop, and he did not perform well his escapade."
Episcopate.
Sorry.
Right, it's okay. That's why we gotta get our language back. Learn all this crazy stuff.
Episcopate.
Right? But episcopate, that means his office, right? Meaning the office of a bishop, overseeing those who are underneath him, the other elders, the other deacons, the other teachers, priests, right? In that governing structure. So remember I said how the church now in the new covenant is that governing structure? Because it's the bishop's role, you know, when you look it up, to be the overseer, to govern over, you know, other congregations and those leaders of those local congregations. Go ahead. So that's what the episcopate is, his office of overseeing. Go ahead.
I'll start it over. He whom you see was a bishop and did not perform well his episcopate, who indeed accepted the great name.
Right, that's key. Who accepted the great name. Because what it's saying in the scriptures, he who accepts the office of a bishop accepts a good work. Same thing about a deacon. And that's what happens when man get puffed up in the flesh and see the rewards and the praise of man and the good name of bishop, of deacon, of officer, of elder, of teacher, right, or whatever. And that's, you know, it's a dangerous thing when you look into the psychology of a people who've had everything stripped from them. Because if you read The Miseducation of the Negro, I know I quote this book a million times, it's a reason. So if you read that book, he goes into how the church was one of the main things where the black man could feel some sort of importance. And that's why you notice there's always an influx of either politicians or clergy within black people. It will always be a million preachers everywhere. Always. Because that's how we can feel some sense of importance. So it's a dangerous thing. He'd rather indeed accept that great name, but not enter into the witness of him who gave him the name in all his life, seeing that he did not do just judgment. You notice how the elders and the bishops, they're judges, they're righteous judges. Because remember, they're the governors, they're the overseers over this governing structure right now. Go ahead.
Who indeed accepted the great name, but did not enter into the witness of him who gave him the name, who gave him name in all his life, seeing that he did not just judgment and did not pity widows and orphans, but now he receives retribution according to his iniquity and his works.
Right, and this is kind of like where I was coming from when I made the statement how how we had great men who probably had, you know, the whole nation, the whole city mourning after them.
Right.
But this is where they at, because they had that great name.
Right.
We finished with that one?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, all right, so chapter 36.
Okay, we're in chapter 36. And I saw another man in the fiery river up to his knees. Moreover, his hands were stretched out and bloody, and worms proceeded from his mouth and nostrils.
Right, so worms was coming out of his mouth and nostrils. Horrific. Go ahead.
And he was groaning and weeping and crying. He said, have pity on me, for I am hurt above the rest who are in this punishment.
Right, so he's saying, I'm hurt above the rest. Go ahead.
And I asked, sir, who is this? And he said to me, this man whom thou seest was a deacon, who devoured the oblations and committed fornications and did not right in the sight of the Most High.
Right, so devoured the oblations, meaning he devoured what the people was bringing forth. And committed fornications. Go ahead.
For this cause he unceasingly pays the penalty.
All right, next part. And I look closely.
And I looked closely and saw alongside of him another man whom they delivered up with haste and cast into the fiery river. And he was in it up to his knees. And there came the angel who was set over the punishments, having a great fiery razor.
So not just a regular razor, a fiery razor. Go ahead.
And with it he cut the lips off that man.
Of the man.
Of the man and the tongue. Likewise inciting.
So with the fiery razor, this man is getting his lips and tongue cut. Go ahead.
I lamented and asked, who is that, sir? And he said to me, he whom thou seest was a reader. Oh, wow.
Exactly.
He whom thou seest was a reader and read to the people, but he himself did not keep the precepts of the Most High. Now he also pays the proper penalty.
Right. Sorry your first day is up here.
Wow.
But it's real. And it says, see whom thou seest was a reader and read to the people, but he himself did not keep the precepts. So chapter 37.
Chapter 37. And I saw another multitude of pits in the same place. And in the midst of it a river full of a multitude of men and women, and worms consumed them.
Right, so there was in the fire, there was in the pit, and the worms were consuming them. Go ahead.
But I lamented and sighing asked the angel and said, sir, who are these? And he said to me, these are those who exacted interest on interest and trusted in their riches.
Right, so who exacted interest on interest and trusted in their riches. Go ahead.
And did not hope in the Most High that he was their helper.
Right, so let's get real quick. I'll just read real quick. Right? Sirach chapter 5 verse 1, it says, set not thy heart upon thy goods, and say not, I have enough for my life. Follow not thine own mind and thy strength to walk in the ways of thy heart. Sirach chapter 5 verse 1 and 2. And James chapter 5 verse 1, it says, go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. We're reading about these miseries right now.
James 5:1.
Yep. I mean, it's through verse 5. Really the whole chapter. Well, no, not the whole chapter. Probably to about verse 8. James chapter 5, verses 1 through 8. Talking about the rich man again. And remember, Christ asked the man, it's something we kind of miss with that man who asked Christ, how shall I obtain eternal life? Because we usually read it in Matthew, right? Because there's something about that man who it will miss it and it'll go right over our heads. The man who didn't want to sell all his goods, right? And it's in Luke. I want to say like the 11th chapter. This is one of those scriptures I always fly over when I'm trying to find it. I never find it when I'm looking for it.
I know one of y'all got it out there. Rich man.
Yeah, it's I'll find it.
Matthew 19 and 23.
No, it's the precept to that, the one in Luke, because it says how that man was a lawyer or a ruler of the people. So he went in Matthew, you would think he's just some regular Joe Schmo, but in Luke it gives a description of who he actually is, and he's actually a lawyer or a ruler of the people. 16 to who? Nah, it's like I told you, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I never find it, but I don't want to take away. We'll find it, right? So let's get back to this part, and after that, yeah, because
Yeah, we just did that.
yeah, okay.
And after that, I looked and saw another place, very narrow, and it was like a wall and fire round about it. And I saw inside men and women gnawing their tongues. And I asked, Sir, who are these? And he said to me, These are they who in church disparage the word of God, not attending to it, but as it were make naught of God and his angels. For that cause, they now likewise pay the proper penalty.
Right. So we already went over the spirits. What that means is to make little of, or to hold in not high regard. So these are the people who pretty much don't regard the word of the Most High, who take it for naught, who don't take it serious, right? And that's it on that, yep. So, enough with the horror. There's another side to the story, right? Because we didn't read the first part of this for a reason, and we're going to say that for another day. Because guess what the first part it describes? The kingdom. And we're going to go, so I said, remember I said there's two branches from it, or three? So we're going to go into the spirit of the detractor, right? But we also going to go into in another lesson, because we got to know what our reward is, what it looks like, huh? Because when we know what our reward is, and what it looks like and things like that, we know what we're fighting for. It makes it a lot easier to stay on that narrow path with all that danger flying around you on both sides, right? So let's get back to the lesson. We had Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 35.
Are you there, say, Con?
All right, I got the scripture right now. it's chapter 10. So 10 and 25. And it says, And behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tempted him, saying, Master, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? And then it goes on saying pretty much the same thing in Matthew. But this man was a ruler, because lawyer, remember there was doctors and lawyers of the law. He was a ruler. So this man, not only was he rich, but he was a ruler. So he was one of those who trusted in their riches, who trusted in that great name that he got among men. So he wasn't just some regular guy asking Christ how to obtain eternal life. He knew what he was doing when he was asking Christ, because he was tempting Christ. It wasn't just some regular guy. Go ahead, Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 35.
This is Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 35. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there will I plead with you face to face. Verse 36. Like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so will I plead with you, saith the Lord, said AHRAYAH thy power. And I will cause you to pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant.
Right. So we can understand the flow of things here. We went through all that through Apocalypse of Paul to understand that there are punishments within this new covenant for some of the most minute things that you wouldn't even think of. Even for the people who lost hope, or the people who were lukewarm. And even goes on, the people who were fornicators, the people who were idolaters, the people who was magicians, the people who practiced sodomy, all these little things, right? The people who, the women who lied to their parents about defiling their virginity.
Right.
Even that, something as small as that, is a punishment just for those women. Right? The women who enticed men, who seduced men, it's punishment for them. So there's all these little minute things that we got to know about and say to ourselves, like, okay, is it really that serious? Is what I'm about to do, or is what is consuming me right now really that serious? And matter of fact, I got to know that the path that I'm on is filled with danger on both sides. So that's all this is right now, is that danger. So let me stay on this narrow path. Right? Because eventually what's going to happen, and I will cause you to pass under the rod. And the funny thing about the rod, passing under the rod, there's two meanings for that. I don't know the scripture right offhand, but it's in Numbers. The rod meaning the law with Christ, but also the rod is an actual thing that our people used to use to measure the sheep. So it's a real thing. It was a tool to use to measure the sheep, the quality of the sheep. So we'll get past on that, and once again, with that swift judgment, because right now we're under that grace period where the Most High is extremely merciful with us right now. But it will come to a time where it won't be so much so, because Christ will be dwelling amongst us, and there'll be no more time for foolishness. Go ahead. And I'm not talking at you guys. Trust me and believe me that. Because remember, it said this is for the deacons, right? I read that very crystal clear, right?
And the readers too.
Right. That's where you at. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend. Because I got responsibilities.
Did it say anything about officers?
You could, yeah, because if you think about it, like officers are doing especially within this church, because whatever you bound in heaven, bound on earth is bound in heaven.
Right.
If the officers are doing the works so-called of a deacon, you know what I'm saying? Then you can still look at it as that, that same way.
Right.
Go ahead, Doc.
Okay, we in Ezekiel 20 and 36. No, 38. Ezekiel 20 and 38. I will purge out from among you the rebels, and them that transgresses against me. I will bring them forth out of the country where they sojourn. And they shall not enter into the land of Israel, and ye shall know that I am the Most High thy power.
Right. So let's get the commentary.
The commentary reads,
I'm sorry. And the title of this lesson is A Path Least Chosen.
The path least chosen.
The path least chosen, not a path. The path least chosen. Right? So read the commentary again.
There will be rebels even in the wilderness, which show we must work hard now to root out any demons we are contending with. Otherwise, even in the wilderness, we will fall to them.
Right. Because what happens? I always love to give this example. Me and one of my best friends went on a 2-week trip before our senior year. When we got back, let's just say we were cool. We didn't need to see or speak to each other for like a month. Because when you're in close quarters with people, you start to see their quirks, their true personality, their true characteristics. You start looking at them a different way, right? So that's why we got to exercise those things out of us now. So we're not just getting aggravated by the way somebody yawns when they wake up. Because when you're in the wilderness, it's something as small as that'll cause you to hate your brother.
Right.
We're a lot better now. We used to see it a lot in tabernacles.
Oh, yeah.
Where just a lot of the strange things used to happen in tabernacles. Just a lot of just personalities and characteristics just come out the woodworks. And we're like, where did that come from? But now you can't hide. It's easy to come here for a couple hours and go back to your modus operandi that you live for day 1 through 6. And a lot of us, believe it or not, are loners. I used to think I would never get married. I'm not gonna mess with her right now. But a certain lady in here used to call me a cyborg, and I think she still does. But I used to just think I was a loner, right? And that's how a lot of us men are today, and some of the women, because that's how Babylon just brought us up to be a loner, and like to do and like to just do our own thing. Don't talk to me when I'm coming in the house. Y'all too loud. I just want to sit down. I want to read. No, it's not about you anymore.
Right.
It's not about you anymore. So best believe you're in the wilderness and we trying to work together to build something. When you don't have a room and a door anymore, it's going to be some problems if you don't work this stuff out first. Right?
That's right.
Go ahead,
This is Galatians. We're going to Galatians 6 and 7.
And another thing I like to observe in tabernacles, I couldn't do this little study this year because it was raining. But I like to see who stays in their tent the longest. I'm like, okay. Who likes to just sit in their car for the longest? Oh, okay. And not blaming them or anything like that. Right. Because I used to do the same thing. Sit in my car or sit in a U-Haul truck, right? And I don't blame or judge anybody because I just like to observe, like, okay, now I kind of see where people are at, and now we just tailor the lessons a certain way, and now we approach different brothers and sisters a certain way now. That's all that is. Go ahead,
Okay, this is Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. Be not deceived. The Most High is not mocked.
Right, and that's one of the main problems with Israel. With man, period, but especially with Israel. The Most High is not mocked. And we mock the Most High continuously. Go ahead.
For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Verse 8. For he that soweth to his flesh shall the flesh reap corruption. But he that soweth to the Spirit shall the Spirit reap life everlasting.
Right, let's get the commentary.
And the commentary reads, if we live our life chasing after fleshly desires, we will eventually have to meet the judge. The Father will not be mocked and will hand out swift judgment on the wicked. So we must change now.
Right, so it says if we live our life chasing after fleshly desires, and remember what we speak about last week, the desires of the flesh ain't nothing but a fantasy that was dreamed up by some ad agency downtown. Because if anybody missed it, I mentioned how I read this study on how this man had some brain damage. I forget how, like a blow to the head or something. And the emotional part of his brain wasn't working anymore like it usually does, like a normal person. But his logical part of the brain was still working fine. He could do the math problems, calculate, logical stuff. He was fine. Puzzles, all that. But for simple decisions as far as how to design, how to organize his desk, it took him a couple hours. It took him like 2 hours. So you need the emotional part to make a decision. And these advertisers know it. Hollywood knows it. Best believe, what's that movie? When they gave us some fake culture, Black Panther, yeah. They gave us Wakanda, right? That's not real.
Right.
We get like, we know Wakanda's not real, folks. But we made it real. We made it very real.
Sir, yes,
It's a superhero movie.
Yes, sir.
But we made it real. And it was a 2-hour advertisement on how to reel us back into the fantasy.
Yep.
That's what it was, a 2-hour fantasy reel. Go ahead, Doc.
Okay, we're going to our 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 3. Will you dare say con? Okay, this is 1 Peter chapter 1 and verse 3. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Yeshua the Mashiach, which according to his abundant mercy hath begotten us again unto a lively hope by the resurrection of Yeshua from the dead. Verse 4. To an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled that fadeth not away, reserved in heaven for you, who are kept by the power of the Most High through faith unto salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time. Verse 6, wherein you greatly rejoice through now for a season, if need be, you are in heaviness through manifold temptations.
Right. That's real key. It says, wherein ye greatly rejoice, though now for a season, if need be, ye are in heaviness through manifold temptations. Go ahead.
Verse 7, that the trial of your faith being much more precious than of gold that persisteth though it be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Yeshua the Mashiach.
Right, and that's something we got to realize, that the trial of our faith is much more precious than gold. Like, it's a war. Because best believe the enemy knows that it is a narrow path. And the enemy knows that you got to choose to stay on that path. And the enemy knows that your faith is more precious than anything else. So always keep that in mind. Know that, hey, it's not worth it. It's not. Because you got, you got an enemy. Just put it like that. You got an enemy. You got a power that's out to get you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Art.
The commentary reads, through our trials, we shall be made into a vessel of righteousness.
Right, so the enemy will make you think that these trials is, oh, that's my sign, to just throw it away and give up. No, the trials are used for the Most High. It says, through our trials, we shall be made into a vessel of righteousness. Because he decreed it when? We read it in Ezra. When Adam fell, that's when he decreed it. That to get your inheritance, you're going to have to go down this narrow path that's filled with danger. It says, through our trials, we shall be made into a vessel of righteousness to be used by the Most High. Because there's plenty of, we just read one, but there's plenty of what you call examples in the scriptures about how we'll be tested and compare how things get pure in the fire. And our fire is adversity right now. Our fire is temptation right now. The trying of our faith, the trying of our patience. That's what our fire is right now. You go ahead, Art.
Through our trials, we shall be made into a vessel of righteousness to be used by the Most High. If we overcome our temptations we are faced with, The struggles we have are to raise our spiritual value like refined gold.
Right, we got to raise our spiritual value. And if gold is the measuring, if gold is the end all be all, then that means we start off as spiritual, I don't know. Coal. Yeah, that's a good one. Right. Spiritual coal. We're going to go with that one, right? But we got to keep getting refined and purge through that fire. So let's get Matthew 13 and 18.
When you there, say, Con.
And it's funny too, because we'll think we build our spiritual worth by stacking up scriptures, by building up a catalog and a library of precepts, by taking down one Christian after another, right? No, we build our spiritual worth by enduring the trials and enduring that fire, enduring that temptation, keeping our patience. Because best believe, at that judgment, they're not going to pull out a whole, you knocked down 18,000 Christians. That's not going to be the measuring stick. It's not. Go ahead,
Okay, this is Matthew chapter 13, verse 18. Hear ye therefore the parable of the sower. Verse 19, when anyone heareth the word of the kingdom and understandeth not, then cometh the wicked one, and catches away that which was sown in his heart. This is he which received seed by the wayside. But he that received the seed into stony places, the same is he that heareth the word, and anon with joy receives it. Verse 21. Yet hath he not root in himself, but dureth for a while. When the tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, by and by he is offended. Verse 22. He also that receiveth seed among the thorns is he that heareth the word, and the care of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he become unfruitful.
Right. And that's one of the main ones right there. It says, he also that receives seed. I mean, we see the first two a lot. When the wicked one comes, or when the seed wasn't, well, I'll just talk about this real quick. When the wicked one comes, right, and snatches away, we see that a lot, especially during street preaching. And another one we see a lot in street preaching and just in life, or just, within the body. Somebody who's gung-ho, ready to run through the wall, right? Head first. Then all of a sudden you don't see them no more. Because there wasn't no foundation, right? And I used to always, when I was coaching, I used to coach football, I could always tell the new coaches that won't stay. Because they'll be doing all these extra things, got game plans and all this other stuff, just going gung-ho. Got film breakdown and all this other stuff. Then you don't see him no more. Come to one practice. Then all of a sudden you talking about he got this and that going on. He'll be at the game though. He shows up for the game, but then the next week he hear about him, I can't coach anymore. Like what? And it'd be the same thing. That's just a basic principle in life. You'll see it. The people who be the most gung-ho at first, they're not, it's misguided energy. That's why we always say, guide your energy first with understanding the doctrine, understanding the walk, understand what's required of you. Throw your energy into that first. Yeah, doing the works is fine, but you get caught up in just doing and not really knowing what you're doing and not really knowing why you're doing it. Come on? Let's go.
This is verse 23.
Oh, right, and 22. This is the one we see the most, because the cares of the world and the deceitfulness of riches can be disguised as where I got bills. We live in the real world.
Yeah.
I gotta feed my kids. Yeah, we understand those things. But are you using it as a cloak? Because really you got some other agenda. Because the cares of this world got you too much. And the deceitfulness of riches got you too much.
Or they'll say something like, I don't believe in what I don't see.
Right.
I don't see God, but I see this check. So,
and let me tell you something. I know I told my wife. I just told somebody this, but anyway, the company that I used to work for, AHRAYAH. The company that I used to work for, because I spent like 2 years in North Dakota before, back in like 2011 to like 2013. And they left the voicemail and said, yeah, you know, we see that you got experience doing a long job. And I know what that means, like, yeah, it's gonna be a year or 2 long job, right? And you know, we was just interested to see if you was interested. A 1 year, 2 year job, easy, 150K. That's the type of job that it was. Because it's slave labor, really. You work 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts, and overtime. So, of course, you're gonna make some money. But this ain't the first time I got called. I got called again once we were starting a church up on Maryland. And I got called like 3 or 4 times since we've been in Jeffrey. And you just gotta be strong. You know, I was like, well, it's in Wisconsin. I could just do, 5 days a week, come home a week. I'm trying to calculate all this stuff, but no, that's the stuff that's gonna throw. And I'm like, I know my family probably looking like, are you stupid? You got a family, you're married, but no, we got responsibilities here. We got responsibilities here.
yeah.
I'm not saying to go off on the deep end. If you gotta take care of your family, take care of your family, because that's scripture. But just know that temptation will come. And with temptation, it's something very strange about temptation, because why we get zapped and get turned into geniuses real quick. We start thinking about all type of creative ways to make that temptation work for us. It is something, it transforms us. And I guess it's diary time, I don't know. But something else that a lot of folks don't know about me is that, and this is a thought that always lives with me, right? That I had a football accident when I was 18. And I had a bruised spinal cord and a C6, C7 cervical neck sprain. So I spent the weekend in the hospital, and I was strapped to one of those red boards, you can't move. I was strapped to the board for like 8 hours, it was crazy. And I was sitting in the emergency room, it was crazy, right? And the whole weekend, when they finally took me off the board or whatever, and they gave me my room, the whole weekend, all the nurses kept saying, like, you just don't know how lucky you are. Because I was supposed to be paralyzed. I was supposed to be paralyzed from the neck down. That same common football injury that, when you see people get hit, it was a freak accident. My own player fell on top of my head. Freak accident, right? And I always think about that, like, my life and my body was not meant for just to be doing my own will. Right. Especially when I came to the truth, like, I get the message now. Because I didn't get the message right away. I went right off, I was like, okay, I'm out the hospital, I don't know what y'all talking about, but back to foolishness. But when I came to the truth, it became very crystal clear. Crystal clear. So we gotta realize, like, the Most High, He requires things of us. He does. Go ahead,
Okay, this is verse 23. But he that receiveth seed into the good ground is he that heareth the word and understands it, which also beareth fruit and bringeth forth some hundredfold, from 60, some 30.
You go ahead with the commentary.
Okay, this is the commentary. This truth will not come without offenses, but we must decide whether we will allow some offenses to pull us away from the truth.
Right. It says this truth will not come without offenses. So that's the reality we live in. Know that offenses will come. And the biggest part of it, know that the offenses might not always come from some stranger that you wouldn't care less about anyway. Know that the offenses might come from some people that you love. Go ahead, Art.
Satan will use many tactics to get us away from what will allow us to become fruitful in this work. We can no longer be blind to his tactics, because it's not just our leaving the path, it also affects others.
Right, because you never know. By you being here every week, or showing your strength, showing your dedication, you don't know what that does for the next man or next woman. And you don't know what your absence does to the next man or next woman.
Right.
You don't. You know. You just don't. You don't know who's watching you. You don't even know you're being watched. You be like, why me? Why are they watching me? It might be a year or two down the line, somebody pull you to the side like, man, you know, I just want to thank you. This is how it goes, for real. And you be like, what? And you just play back in your mind, man, those 2 years you was watching me? That's just how it goes. So you gotta stay strong. You gotta persevere. You gotta keep coming. Temptation, the enemy, he will be there. Stay strong. And you all done a good job so far, right? Good. Because I don't know, I bet y'all don't know what next week is.
Halloween.
Nope. Well, yeah. Next week is a year anniversary when we signed that lease for Maryland.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Y'all still here? Come on. It was the 1st of November.
Wow, that was good.
Yep. And then we got the real anniversary coming up soon. Right? We're going to definitely have something special for that. All right? So let's get back to the lesson. Luke chapter 9, verse 57.
Will you dare say kind? Luke chapter 9, verse 57. Okay, this is Luke chapter 9 and 57. And it came to pass that as they went the way, a certain man said unto him, Lord, I will follow thee wheresoever thou goest. And Yeshua said unto him, Foxes have holes, and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. Verse 59, and he said unto another, Follow me. But he said, Lord, suffer me first to go and bury my father. And Yeshua said unto him, Let the dead bury their dead, but go thou and preach the kingdom of the Most High.
Oh, okay.
Luke, this is verse 61. And another also said, Lord, I will follow thee, but let me first go bid them farewell, which are at my home and my house. And Yeshua said unto him, No man having put his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for the kingdom of the Most High. The commentary reads, Your worldly life is over.
Now that's a hard pill to swallow. It's a very straightforward, simple sentence too. Your worldly life is over. And it's no like trying to search like, what do they mean?
Right.
It's crystal clear, right? Your worldly life is over. Go ahead.
You were entrusted with the truth to change others' lives.
That's the thing. We was entrusted with the truth to change other people's lives. Because I remember the sister asked the question a few weeks ago. She was like, how is it that we'll do greater works? That's how. Because remember, the Spirit will flow through us and we'll get the gift of the Holy Spirit and be able to do greater works. Why? Because there's an army of us now. Changing lives. Go ahead.
You can't just turn back to the old filth you came out of. or you will be considered not fit for the kingdom.
Right, and I'm not talking about people that, because I'm gonna use my words wisely. I'm gonna talk about people who you guys will never know, right? As an example. But I've seen some folks who just went way off the deep end, and I can understand it. You'll end up questioning sanity as you know it, leaving this truth and trying to go back to this world. What else are you gonna do? Where else are you gonna go? It's gonna be all around you. It's gonna be like, what's the movie? Ghost. When he was seeing everything now. Like, it's gonna be the same thing now. So you got where you gonna go? And I've seen people in the past who just go way off from the deep end and like, man, what happened? But I understand it. Because if you try to go back, you kind of in limbo. You can't survive that way. So let's get, this will be the last set of scriptures. We're just gonna do a part 2. Believe it or not, I'm on page 3 out of 8. So we're not gonna have a 5-hour lesson. So we'll just do a part 2. Yeah, 2nd Ezra. So we're at 2nd Ezra, chapter 16, verse 37. Well, when I say last set, we're gonna do this and then go to precept. So last roundabout.
When you're there, say "Con."
And just so you all know, it's 5:43, so I do my best to keep the lessons about 90 minutes or an hour 45. So just so you all kind of know what you get into when you come here, so you kind of be in a headspace like, all right, 90 minutes, so I know let me just be focused for 90 minutes or hour 45, so I know what to just focus on, Con? All right.
Okay, this is 2nd Ezra, verse 16 and 37. And it reads, "Behold, the plagues draw nigh and are not slack, as when a woman with child in the 9th month bringeth forth her son, with 2 or 3 hours of her birth great pains compasses her womb, which pains when the child cometh forth, they slack not a moment."
Right, so it says the plagues draw nigh and are not slack. And it gives the example of a woman in her labor pains. Go ahead.
Verse 39. "Even so shall not the plagues be slack to come upon the earth, and the world shall mourn, and sorrows shall come upon it every side."
Right, and that's what's going to happen, is when the plagues are going to hit this world like a storm. And it's going to hit it like a storm because the world wasn't looking. Yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The sign's been here. Yep. I'll say the number one sign is if you want to just venture off to the north side. That's the number one sign, right? Anything north of Madison, right? Number one sign right there. Go ahead.
This is verse 40, 2nd Ezra, chapter 16 and 40. Oh my, go ahead.
I'm sorry. And I'm going to say, the LGBTQ, whatever else, you got to really understand that mindset. You don't have to make it your life's work too. It's fine if you just stick with the gospel. But when you talk to some of these folks and look at how they operate, it's like out of a movie. And I was at Dunkin' Donuts yesterday, and I thought, I'm pretty sure some of the people who worked there probably thought he was just, an early bird for Halloween. But I'm telling you, it looks like a Halloween show sometimes. All of the time. from a fellow driver, because he knows. Right, with my other driver. Yeah. It's just, it gets to a point where, you know, you just know, it's like, all right, times are changing, the world is changing, and what's supposed to be accepted as the norm is changing, right? Go ahead.
The world has changed.
From
my perspective.
I stand corrected. The world has changed. It has nosedived, according to our elder. Right? Go ahead.
Okay, this is 2nd Ezra 16 and 40. O my people, hear my word. Make you ready to the battle. And in those evils, then even as pilgrims upon the earth.
Right. So it says, O my people, hear my word. Make you ready to the battle. And in those evils be as pilgrims upon the earth. Go ahead.
41. He that selleth, let him be as he that fleeth away, and he that buyeth as one that will lose. He that occupieth merchandise as he that has no profit by it, and he that buildeth as he that shall not dwell therein. He that soweth as if he should not reap, so also that he that planteth the vineyard as he that shall not gather the grapes. They that marry as they that shall not. They that marry as they that shall get no children, and they that marry not as the widowers. Wow. 45. And therefore that they labor in vain.
Right. So is it saying become a derelict, you know, the outcast of society? No. Take care of your business, take care of your family.
Right.
But check your motivations. Check your intentions first. That's what it's saying.
Right.
Get your I'm saying like 3 different things at the same time. I'm trying to tell you I'm reading the commentary, but tell them to read the commentary. You'll see what I said.
The commentary reads, our minds must become fashioned after the scriptures and not the world, knowing that time is short.
Right, so it says our minds must become fashioned after the scriptures and not the world, knowing that time is short. Go ahead.
Our priorities must slightly change so that we aren't so distracted by the world that we ignore the warnings of impending doom.
Right. Prime example. I was on YouTube and I saw the ad for the World Series. I said, oh, baseball's still going on? We have to detach. We have to unplug. Mm-hmm. We have to. If we still can recite the starting lineups of these teams, hey fellas, there's no, I'm sorry. If we're knowledgeable enough to have a fantasy football team go, no, we gotta unplug, fellas. We got to. We got to. And it's that simple. And ladies, if we know the current, trends in fashion, if we know the current names that got all the buzz going on, we got to unplug. We got to. When somebody asks you, have you heard such and such new song, you got to look at them crazy like, who? We got to unplug because all that stuff carries with the world.
Right.
It does. I know sometimes we want to kind of have what you call some kind of, escape, which is healthy. That's fine. You want to have a hobby or things like that, or catch a movie every now and then. That's fine. But as far as the cares of this world and the weights and the spirit that moves swift with this world, we can't be attached to that, and we can't get caught up with that.
Right.
Because we'll find ourselves using the same language as the world. Mm-hmm. And when I say language, I'm not talking about just having a foul mouth cursing. I'm talking about the language of the world, speaking the things that they speak, right? Having the same mindset that the world has, having the same perspectives on things that the world has. We can't. Excuse me. And I'm telling you, this city, that this is a very interesting city. And when springtime comes up, We should all just go on a field trip and go downtown. I'm serious, because that's just how serious it is in this city. We gotta remember that we're in the third largest city. We're in the third coast, as they call it. We're in the middle of everything. So we just don't realize how important Chicago is. We're in the middle of everything. We connect the West Coast and the East Coast. So a lot of stuff is gonna be going on here. And a lot of people love this city. A lot of people love this city. Not only the home born and raised, but the people that's coming in, moving for these jobs, or the people who come visit. I hear it all the time. I know you hear it, I know you hear it, and now you about to start hearing it. They love this city. They did a beautiful job. They did a perfect job on laying out this city. It's the most beautiful city. People who have traveled across the world say this is the most beautiful city. Especially in the summer. They know what to do. It's something to do every weekend, every day, especially when it's hot. So they know how to entrap souls. I call it Chicago, the reaper of souls. It is. So to end it off, let's get 2 Peter chapter 2. Because this is the mindset of the world. I'm sorry, not 2 Peter. 2 Peter, not chapter 2, chapter 3. Because it's hard to put down the world if, first of all, the world thinks one way and you're the minority. We're a minority of a minority. Now check that out. So it's definitely gonna be hard. Matter of fact, we're a minority of a minority of a minority. What do I mean? A minority being racial, a minority being believers in Christ, but a minority being believers in the right Christ.
Right. Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So how far does that level go, that rabbit hole go? So we gotta think about it, like, we surrounded, we're encamped. We're encamped by the world. And one little simple glance to the right, we're like, oh, what they doing over there? Because Chicago is the reaper of souls. It is. It's a dangerous thing. Go ahead, chapter 3, verse 1.
Okay, this is 2 Peter chapter 3, starting at 1. This second apostle, beloved, I now write unto you, in both which I stir up your pure minds by the way of remembrance, that ye may be mindful of all words of the words which were spoken before my holy prophets, and of the commandments of us, the apostles of the Lord and Savior.
Right, so we always got to be mindful of the words of the holy prophets and the words of the apostles. Go ahead.
Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lusts.
Right, so in the last days, while we're trying to, what was the last week's lesson? Destined for greatness, subject to sin. So while we're trying to be destined for greatness, knowing these last days are going to be scoffers. And today's lesson, as we're trying to stay on the path he's chosen, is going to be scoffers in these last days. Mm-hmm. We got, family members, classmates, right? Neighbors, what have you, going to be scoffers. Go ahead. And what are they going to be saying?
And saying, where is the promise of his coming?
That same family member, that was the next thing they said. Well, Darren, they've been saying this forever. Mm-hmm. They call the church, it's a word they use. What is the word? It's fear-mongering. It's a word just like fear-mongering. Yeah, doomsday preachers, yeah, doomsday preachers, yeah.
Doomsday prophets.
Yeah. And I was like, no, it's not. Right? Go ahead,
For since the...
it's not you, sorry. Brother Sean.
People get confused because they're saying it's 7 days. So
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the mindset of the world today. And you'll think the way Babylon is set up, you'll think Babylon had never had a beginning and will never have an end. You'll think it's the all be all, the alpha and the omega. And remember we brought out that stat. Remember? How much of the world population does America make? Less than 5%. But we'll think that this place is going to go on forever and it's been here forever, since the beginning of time. So that's a problem. That's an issue with our psyche. That's what's been ingrained in us. Go ahead.
For this, since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue.
Right. And it's hard to think about that since we got what's his name? Trubisky. We got Trubisky now.
What's the Trubisky?
The quarterback for the Bears. I know some things, sorry. But no, we got some hope now. We playoff contenders now. The Cubs, playoff contenders, right? The Bulls got the new boy, right? The economy, hey, is looking up. But guess what? This country was founded by entrepreneurs and opportunists. So that'll always be the doctrine of this place. Opportunity. So it got me mindful of the things that we've been taught, because that was the philosophy of these people who started this country. It wasn't started by people who wanted freedom from the British tax. It was started by entrepreneurs. Know that, number one. So that'll be the doctrine of this place forever. Right? Go ahead.
For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of the creation.
So what they're saying, the scoffers, is, look, these men that you're speaking of, they've been long and gone. And what they were talking about never happened. And matter of fact, it's not going to happen. Get out that book, man. You're losing out on life. Right? That's what they're saying, basically. That's the mindset. Why should you believe in this? And our people, we have some very intelligent people who know how to talk very well and know how to present some very believable arguments on why not to believe this.
Right.
Not believable. What's the word? Strong arguments.
Right.
Yeah, not believable. Edit that out, right? But because the next week we'll start off on that line right there alone. But they'll bring up real good structured arguments, I'll put it that way, right? And if we in one of those moments, one of those seasons in our life, because it's not within the 22 minutes of an episode where things get resolved quickly, right? We might get swayed. Because these things been spoken of since the father's been asleep, and it hasn't happened yet. And the way the things are going, it's not going to happen. Go ahead,
For this they willingly are ignorant of that by the word of the Most High the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. But the heavens and the earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men.
Right, let's unpack that. So that same word that ordained the destruction of the old world, it's that same world that's keeping things intact now, just waiting for the destruction and the judgment of the evildoers. Go ahead, because we're going to explain why. Go ahead.
This is verse 8. But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Most High as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as of one day. Verse 9. The Most High is not slack concerning his promise.
Right, because why do you think Peter goes into that first? That one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. Because that shows, number one, the amount of mercy that he has, it explains it in Sirach, but also the instant that the Most High sends the judgment, we're in two different ways. We understand time two different ways. So the command might come from him instantly, but since we see time and experience time two different ways, it'll come at a different time. It might seem long to us, but no, that decree was made instant. And he's going to explain it. Go ahead.
Verse 9, the Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness.
Right, so some people think it's slackness, meaning that it's never going to come. Go ahead.
But is long suffering to usward, not willing, and any should perish, but that all should come to repentance.
Right, and that's the key, because he wants all to come to repentance. Remember Wisdom of Solomon, he says his chief aim, he didn't create death. He intended for all life to be immortal. Last scripture, go ahead.
Verse 10, but the day of the Most High will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also, and the works that are therein shall be burnt up.
Right. So with that, we'll leave it there. And like I said, part 2 will come. Shalom.
Shalom.
So any questions about today's lesson? Or comments? Yes, ma'am, Mrs. Kellogg.
I have a comment. Speaking about the past.
Wait 1 second. The brother's gonna give you the mic.
I can say it.
Yeah. Well, no, just make sure everybody here, so that's fine. And well, you don't need to strain yourself.
Shalom.
Shalom.
This particular lesson was right on point and quite timely because my husband and I, we have a group of friends that we meet with once a month, and we've been meeting for about 18 years. And I left the church that we were associated with, but I'm still part of this group. So I'm the only non-Christian person in the group, but they always look forward to what I have to say. So this past Sunday when we met, let me just tell you the makeup of this particular group as well, then I'll go to how this ties into the lesson we were talking about. Within this group, there's 2 ministers, 4 deacons, and then there's my husband, and then there's me. So they always ask me questions, but the subject came up, there was a subject that came up, and this was from the ones in the group that's a minister. And so one of my other friends said, well, Sheila, what do you think? And I said, well, I'm going to stay mute on this one because the question was about seminary. So my other friend that's a minister, she's a female, she said she stopped going to seminary because most of the McCormick Theological Seminary is the seminary that she mentioned, and it's a very prominent seminary within the Chicago area and nationwide. She said that within the seminary, they don't teach scriptures. I said, they don't teach scriptures. I said, well, what's the point of going to seminary? She said, well, most of the classes are taught by atheists. They don't teach scripture. They don't teach scripture. What they want to teach is philosophy and theology. So what they do is comparative religious studies and philosophy, but they don't teach scripture. So these are the people that they're preparing to put into the pulpits, which to me is part of a larger system of still misleading the people down that least path, because there's no way these people will ever have their eyes open because they've been indoctrinated by, if you've got which seminary is like a university, teaching people, you've got atheists, philosophers, and theologians, but no people that really believe in the gospel, because they don't believe that you have to believe in the gospel to teach it.
Right. Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting and enlightening because I did not know that.
That's very key that you said that, because I was telling my wife and a couple brothers, I saw this panel discussion. I still got to watch it, but it's called Preaching the Gospel to Millennials, or Black Millennials, something like that. Yeah, black was in there. So preaching to black millennials, maybe something like that. And the moderator, when he was introducing himself about who he was saying, like, yeah, I'm such and such, and I'm working to get my PhD in African American preaching. I'm like, that's a whole niche study in itself, you know. So I heard that, you know, in the seminaries that's a course or a angle of study. I didn't know you could get a PhD in that. So just know that it's real. And just on top of that as well, it's like identity is real strong. I mean, yeah, identity is real strong and it's real key. Because at first we'll always, just naturally, we'll identify ourselves as Americans, whether it's African American, Mexican American, whatever American, right? And we'll get caught up thinking that we are American and that the American way of life includes us, but it does not. So we gotta understand that. And where am I going with this? Because when you go to Chinatown, they understand that they are not American. When you go to Koreatown, they understand that they are not American, right? Because different nations are on whole different timelines based on their own experience. And they know what they need to do to help their people based on the timeline they're in. So the sooner we stop identifying as African Americans, the sooner, like you say, we will not be indoctrinated by the American way of life. Because the American way of life, we were what? A labor unit. That's what we were. A resource. We were a resource. The sooner we understand that, the sooner we can sit back and say, okay, let's look more into this whole church thing and realize how a church is really supposed to be ran, realize what the true value of a church is, realize what the true purpose of a church is, that is the governing structure of the new covenant. And let's put our energy into that, right? Because the American way of life is going to teach you to be all you can be an opportunist, be an entrepreneur, be a slave, right? All these different things. And of course, we're not downplaying entrepreneurship or anything like that, because we got a thing in the announcements. Right. I know a lot of things I might say seem like they clash with each other, but trust me, I'll make sense in my mind, I think. But just know, like, that American drive of starting a business, that's where you can go off on the deep end, okay? There's nothing wrong with starting a business that's going to support the church, support your people, or, you know, things like that, support your family. But if you're trying to be the next Robert Kiyosaki, then, hey, I don't know what to tell you. If you're trying to be the next Donald Trump, I don't know what to tell you, right? So any more comments or questions? Sorry to judge that one, y'all went up at the same time. Right.
I got a question. You answered it, but I can't remember it.
Okay.
Ecclesiasticus, right before the James 5. What was that Ecclesiastic?
James 5, what's that going into? Patience, or what is that? The riches.
It was after while we were reading the Apocalypse.
Right, so it was Sirach 5 and 1.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need. 5 and 1, that's it? It was just one?
1 through 2. Oh. Well, if you go through like 1 through 7, it kind of has the same thing. It kind of has the same theme of not putting off the Most High and following your own will. But it starts off with riches, though, not trusting your own riches. And brother, wait, we gotta get the mic to you. We got brother Jarrell right here.
All right, Shalom family.
Shalom.
I just had 2 quick points to bring out. Like Deacon was saying, like it's entrepreneurs that started this country up. And to touch on that point, I'm gonna just pick up in Revelation 18 and halfway through verse 10. Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. So you have like a whole country getting wiped off the map. And the only thing the people that made it are worried about is that they can't make money off it anymore. So that's just another point to...
And you gotta remember, the world economy was started in America, or not America, but in the Americas, and it went to America off the slave labor. It started in the Caribbean, went down to South America, then to America. But go ahead, Art.
Because the next two verses are just listing all the merchandise that they made, through this country, and one of those is slaves. So, as you were saying, they made merchandise of us as well. And a few weeks ago, for the second point, a sister had asked a question when you were gone, Dee, and I don't know if it was ever answered, but it was on Matthew 5 and 17 through 20, I think, mainly verse 19, where it said, "Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven." And I was going to reference the Apocalypse of Paul, so it's great that you brought it out this week, so everyone knows what it entails. But mainly the question was, so will those people make it into the kingdom, or will they, or not? And so the answer I had was no, especially going over what we went today, because it says, "Whosoever shall break and teach men so." So the people in the position to teach would be the elders, the deacons, the bishops, and the people reading the word in church. So we went over those judgments today. So clearly they wouldn't make it into the kingdom to be called the least as well. So shalom.
And then also when you read like the first part of it, not to get playing into semantics, but when you read the first part of it, it is certain people who will be on the outer courts, and that's their punishment. And then you got some people, you got different levels, different heights of the walls. Some people whose faith was stronger than others. But for the most part, the answer to the question, crystal clear and cut, is what you said. But since we had the book open today, I just want to make that disclaimer. So in case somebody read that tonight and be like, well, what about this part? That's why it's there.
The water.
And we got the brother in the back, back right corner. Brother Pierre, right? Yeah.
I'm gonna try to be short. Earlier you said you never know who's watching, and I'm guessing about 4 or 5 years ago, my brother Darius said he was watching me. He didn't tell me this, but until recently, that he was watching me read the Bible and talk different, act different. Of course, I was still under the Christian mindset, but I didn't have a Christian home. But I still fasted. I read the Bible. And we was talking recently, and I was like, man, that was like, because he the one put me on with the GOCC church and the truth. And I'm thinking like, oh, that was like a year ago. And he went into his email and he sent me something August of 2016. And I'm like, yo, that's over 3 years ago. And I'm thinking it's just like a year ago. And since then, we talked and we've been coming to the church, and my life changed. So I learned the truth, because I changed more since then. So all praise to the Most High for me not being all Christian out, because as soon as he sent me stuff, my mind immediately changed. I didn't have any pushback. I just got into the information and just ran with it. So that's all I had to say.
All praise. And that's something you all can do. Trust me, it's fun and it's very interesting. Is if you keep like your notes, always just keep your notes, your notebooks. Keep all your notebooks, because you'll be surprised like what you was talking about. Like you find some notebooks from like 5 years ago. Like, man, this is what I was talking about. And you just see the progression and the ideas that was on your mind back then and things like that. Or just the stuff that you thought was important back then, is always just keep, it's kind of like your life log almost, right? And you'll be surprised how fast 5 years go. So any other questions or comments?
I will say something. That when we was reading in the Apocalypse of Paul, did y'all notice the one word that kept standing out? Fornication. Over and over and over again. It's not just talking about, I know the deacon expound more on it, but it's not talking about just, sexual fornication. It's going into different doctrines, liking something too much, like TV shows or, you know what I'm saying, cars. It's a lot of things you can fornicate over in this world. So let's be careful. If we liking something too much, really look at it and see if it's something you really should be looking at. Because I used to watch this TV show called Supernatural. Supernatural, that was my joint. But now it's in the last season, and all of a sudden they got a God character in it, and they turning the God character to the bad guy. So it's like people who don't understand the Bible, who don't read the Bible, they'll look at that and they'll think that's what God is. So it's us who's in the truth, who's reading, who know now what fornication is. We could tell them that no, that's kind of wrong. That's kind of wrong. You probably need to pull your head out of it, like I need to pull my head out of it. So I know the deacon will let you know more about what fornication is, what I'm talking about.
That's it. Good walk. Anybody else? All right. Anybody here for the first time? He raises his hand. Man, you've been here. Anybody here for the first time? Going once, going twice. All right. Nobody here for the first time.
Really breaks my heart. Cause we've been lied to, misled for years, calling out to the Most High on this trail of tears.